Ryan Day. Never change, buddy. Great radio fodder. You know, we're doing Lions, but I'm gonna mix this in. It's important. So, without anybody's feelings getting hurt, let's just have an honest conversation for a second. Let's establish things that we know to be true. You know I don't value the preseason polls because they're based on nothing. They're based on bias. I don't respect the early season polls, and I don't once again this year because apparently you just doesn't matter who you play. Well, Georgia won it last year, so they're number one. Are they? Well, Michigan hasn't lost. Right, who'd you play? So I wanted to do something because I could make fun of the clown car in East Lansing, but that's who cares?
Easy. That car's off the side of the road.
It is.
They're waiting on AAA.
My whole question is this. If you're a Michigan fan, can you call in and make a good faith case as that you deserve to be ranked number 2 in America right now? What exactly have you done in any of these games that leads you to believe that you are better than, well, for 1, Texas, 2, Florida State, 3, Ohio State, 4, Washington? I mean, tell me why again, other than our helmets have wings. You have played the most embarrassing 4-game schedule in Power 5 college football. You haven't looked dominating doing it. Don't pretend you have. You haven't. You know it. You've watched the games like I have. And yet, a team like Texas has gone on the road multiple times, including to Tuscaloosa and on the road in the conference, and they're destroying people. Mm-hmm. Florida State played LSU neutral site and went to Death Valley this weekend where Clemson's back is against the wall. Mm-hmm. Beat them in overtime.
A place that they hadn't won in like 10 years or so.
The point I'm making is taking the lazy way out, which is what I heard Jim and John do this morning of, well, it'll all shake itself out, so who cares? No. We do sports radio for a living. Have a conversation about it. Michigan, Georgia being number 1 and Michigan being number 2 to me is hilarious. They are the 2 most embarrassing schedules, and they haven't even looked that great playing these embarrassing teams. So if it doesn't matter who you play, why have a poll? Now, could Michigan end up being great? Sure. But the other problem I have is the conversation all centers around Ryan Day. Instead of Ryan Day just went down to Notre Dame at night and won a damn street fight, which is the epitome of toughness. Mm-hmm. Oh, I know he called the jet sweep on 4th and an inch, and it was stupid. I understand that. And I had this argument with Cookies this morning when we were doing the podcast. I'm like, Jim, well, define tough for me. Tough is when you're down on the road late with your unproven quarterback, and I need him to make big throws to get me to the point where I can win the game, and they did that.
At night in South Bend.
Tough is I need my defense to come up with a big play at a big moment late to get the football back, and they did that.
At night in South Bend. Yeah,
standing up against 2 NFL tackles in Fisher and Alt, and holding that ground game to somewhat about 50 carries for about 170 yards. They did that. Now, I'm not telling you there's some finished product. And I don't know if it's going to hold when they play you. That's the last mountain they have to climb. But this idea that we're minimizing what OSU went and did this weekend, when you're sitting here playing the Wilford Brimley Diabetes schedule, getting loaded on cupcakes, I'm sorry. I think that's a laugh factory to me. Oh, it'll shake itself out. Yeah, well, great. Then why don't you just take 8 weeks off the air? Come back when it's relevant. Right. In the here and now, I'm watching teams across America make statements.
Mm-hmm. Because even against bad teams, there's certain you look at what Washington is doing. They're destroying people. Michael Penix is throwing 400 yards, 4 touchdowns in 3 quarters, and then he's done. His day is over. But you see the utter dominance. They're not letting teams hang around. Yeah, you see Florida State have gone out and played 2 tough games already. Yeah, I've seen with my own eye, like, this team is good. And then when you look at Michigan, it's like, okay, you're winning games, but in the 3rd quarter of all your games, it's still somewhat of a struggle. Yeah, you're probably going to beat Rutgers, but Rutgers is driving. And then you got the pick 6, I think by Sanders still, and now you blow the game out. But that's in the middle of the 3rd quarter, not the 1st quarter. Like, you're going into the half with 7-6, and then you finally score right before the half. I don't see how they're number 2, man. But Mike, apparently, and then I was looking it up because I just look at the AP voters, the pollsters, and who voted for who. Robert Cessna, he writes for College Station, actually has Michigan ranked number 1. They got one first-place vote this year.
I would love
that tells me you're
not watching games.
No.
And again, the ranking long-term does not matter. But in the here and now, it's a conversation as to why we even have a poll before the month of October. If you took the rankings off of the teams, and I said to you right here, right now, looking at the resumes, the same way we do to make the playoff, the same way we do to make the NCAA tournament, make your case for U of M. Where would you be right now? Because to me, they'd be no better than 5 or 6. There are teams that have done very legitimate things. And you might be better than them teams, but we have no way of knowing.
No, I mean, I even look at what Penn State did, and my goodness, Iowa, thanks for showing up.
What, 4 first downs?
Yeah, what, like 76 total yards?
Problem for Penn State. Listen, the advantage Michigan has over Penn State and Ohio State is they have a quarterback who's back and experienced. Drew Aller is still a kid. McCord grew up Saturday night. You have to make big throws in that game, big moments. That's experience you draw upon when he's going to have to do that in Ann Arbor. I just make the point. I laughed. Cookies and John's big takeaway was, well, it wasn't easy. It didn't look good. You went on the road to Notre Dame at night. What the hell was this supposed to be?
Yeah. You're not beating them by 3 touchdowns.
You have people talking about Notre Dame being a contender for the playoff. I'm supposed to waltz in their house and blow their doors off? I'm just making the point. The schedule you're playing is the most dishonest thing on the planet. You and Georgia both ought to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
And Kenny's not here today because he's under the weather. But, I mean, give me a break. If you're Georgia, why are you number 1? What have you done?
Exactly. You haven't played anybody. But I think a lot of the slander for what Ohio State did just simply becomes because they're Ohio State and you're Michigan, and you can never give them credit. You can't just say, you know what, that was a good game. They played, they went on the road, they beat Notre Dame. Because if it was the other way around and Michigan goes to Notre Dame and Michigan wins with 1 second to go in the game.
They would have had to have put a tarp down on John's chair and give him a box of wet wipes.
Right.
Get out of here with that. He would have talked about conquering heroes and the bravery and what it took to go to Notre Dame.
JJ hung in the pocket. He made the call. Blake Corum crosses the goal line.
Get out.
Yeah, right. But a lot of times, if you just swap teams and put your team in there, and then you see how ridiculous you sound.
Well, that's why I'm the best source for your news, because I hate you, but I respect you. I mean, Michigan's a really good team, but I'll be damned. I watch more football than anybody, and I just know when you have teams going out. I'll give you an example. Now, I don't know what will happen this weekend, but work with me for a second. Like this weekend, if Duke beats Notre Dame and is sitting at 4-0 with wins over Notre Dame and Clemson, I mean, no, Duke shouldn't be in the top 5, but Duke should be a top 10 team.
No, actually, Mike, I think they should probably be in the top 5. Because here's the thing. Then what are you rewarding? Why do you have a poll if you're only basing it off what you think they're going to do in the future? If you've gone out there and you've beaten these 2 teams, yeah, you deserve to be in the top 5. It can change week to week, but I'm not going to sit here and downplay you like, well, Georgia did win the title. Yeah, they did, but play somebody.
Like, again, a great example of how funny it is. Why is Ohio State not ranked ahead of Michigan? At least they've left home. Done it twice, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because Michigan, they started off 2, and
who cares, though?
I mean, it's why
early season rankings should have wild swings based on what you've done.
It requires people to actually watch games instead of just already. It's like Mad Lib, for the games where you already know the story. They already know who they're putting 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
See, the problem with the rankings is it's always the back end of the top 25 that changes so much because of what happened.
Right.
Correct.
Colorado jumps up because of what they did. They lose. They jump out. Well, why doesn't the top of the rankings change because of that?
Thank you.
That's what should be adjusted.
That's what I want. And I'll make an example. Let's say Michigan's undefeated and they drop a bomb on Penn State. Well, I really don't care what anyone else has done. You can make a case Michigan should be number 1 in America.
Right.
But in the here and now, This downplaying of what OSU did against Notre Dame, when in fact what they did is take a step closer to beating you. When you've got live fire and real reps and you got to go on the road at night and prove it, and things don't go your way and your coach is kind of a boner, I think that's going to help you when you got to go into Ann Arbor.
Mike, when you're sitting at 1-2, you're pretty much untouchable until you lose. Case in point, USC goes on the road. They win a game at Arizona State. They fell in the polls because of that. They won. It was not pretty. Defense ain't there. They dropped. But 1-2, you have to lose a game. It's an unwritten rule, or else you just stay as status quo. You start your ballot off with those two there, and then you figure out the rest.
No, and I watch Georgia and I watch Michigan, and it's the same thing. If you're not going to play anybody, I don't know what your claim is. Now, if you're going out and winning 62-0 and your starters are out in the early third quarter, you're putting forth a level of dominance.
Right.
Well, that ain't Michigan.
Well, that's why I look at Washington. I'm like, okay, that's what you do. Pretty much you just go out there. You can't cover. I don't even think Penix has been sacked this year. And his receivers are just out there making circus. We talk about the Ohio State receivers, but you dominate your team that they are never in the game.
Right.
Florida State, playing LSU. Okay, well, they almost lost to Boston College. Okay, it was a look-ahead game, but then they bounced back, and they did something they haven't done, and they beat Clemson for the first time in, over 10 years. You deserve to be ranked higher.
It would just add to the intrigue of the season to have legitimate, fluid rankings where what you do actually – now, again, if you're going to call up and go, well, what have we done to fall from number 2? Well, what did Ohio State do to fall? They had a non-sexy performance at Indiana that they used as a quarterback competition and fell 3 spots. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if you don't play anyone and other teams are playing a gauntlet and bombing teams, a.k.a. Texas, why the hell are you ahead of Texas? Mm-hmm. It just adds to the fun of the season. Otherwise, why have these?
It's the beauty of the college football playoff poll, because that's the real – when that comes out in week 8 – okay, now they can base it off of everything. But unfortunately, even if you're ranked artificially high, you're still ranked.
Well, then no one's ranked until then.
I have always said I wouldn't do a ranking till the first week of October. Get some data points, get 5 games in the mix, and then I can put something together for you. Because I tell you right now, Georgia and Michigan wouldn't be 1-2.
No.
You want to play these hee-hee and ha-ha schedules, what the hell am I taking out of that? 248-539-9797.